Hello, seekers and quilt people. How are you today? I'm doing great. Welcome to a very rare evening edition of Spiritual Disco. Why I'm doing this today is because I'm having a really big book launch of Foreign to Me, which is the first book that I ever wrote. And it's currently available for free. The ebook, you can go and download it. You don't need a special device to read a Kindle file. All devices now, you can open those types of files and read a book. So all devices have an ebook reader. Don't worry about getting a special device. Anyhow, so what I wanted to talk about in terms of like me writing and my writing style is not just about me and my books, but rather why you might want to think about going on this same journey, because it's been pretty transformational for me. When I first started writing Foreign to Me, this book here, I discovered that I was kind of tapping into something that was kind of like leading or directing me in my writing, right? And it was kind of like it was interesting, like it was notable. Like from the moment I was like, oh, like this is kind of just like I'm in flow here. I feel like, I'm just typing away, and there was no stop gap of information. By the time I got to writing the second chapter, like I just kind of stood up and looked around like, am I on like some kind of reality TV show or something here? Because it felt unlike anything else I'd ever experienced before. Flash forward all these years later, and what I was doing is what's called automatic writing. And it is a process of channeling information. Some will say from beyond you, some will say from your subconscious. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter where it comes from, right? Whether it's your subconscious offering up information, whether you're pulling it out of the ethers, whatever you want to tell yourself that you're doing, ultimately, it's a way of learning. And that was like the aha that I had with this, because like as I was like going along and just like free associating, right? Just whatever, blah, 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 craziness, whatever I could think of, right? But it's coming out in like an eloquent manner, and that's actually making sense. And it's a storyline that I'm not necessarily attached or associated to. However, all of the experiences behind the characters are mine. So like people will read it and they're like, I don't really, like this isn't your story. And I'm like, oh, it very much is. It very much is my story, because everything that Jack Daw, the main character, goes through is my life, right? I didn't want to write my story because unless you're like Anne Frank, like people's stories are often generally the same, right? We meet someone, we fall in love, we have this epic whatever, and it's sometimes hard to relate. So I wanted my story to live in this kind of more magical world of a, very damaged and wounded individual on his way to enlightenment. Ultimately, what I wanted my books to be was to be a roadmap of how we evolve in our consciousness. We all talk a lot about doing things. We all talk a lot about taking steps and doing action items and whatever else. But I feel like a lot of people aren't focused like in the right direction or have clear enough steps or information on how to get there. As you have seen on this channel, I have been using kind of myself as a guinea pig, have I not? Right? In seeing how I can, well, first of all, it starts in the characters, right? Because I get a concept or whatever, and I've been studying this stuff my entire life, but clearly, go back and look at my early videos, like I just wasn't awesome in the world. I understood the concepts because I had studied them my entire life, but I was having a hard time internalizing them into the way I was in the world, right? Because I was, brought up by crazy people. Right? I mean, my parents did the best that they could, but they were not always awesome in a few areas. So, but the process of getting into my story, right? Unpacking not only my story, but all of my limiting beliefs, unpacking all of the thing behind the thing, Like, what's really motivating that thing? Not just what the thing is, but what's the motivation behind that action or life decision? Because what I was doing ultimately is I was putting like my problems on this fictional character and then trying to solve my problems from like an arm's length transaction. It was giving me distance to my own problems that allowed me to see them in a different light. That ultimately is why you might want to consider writing your story. I didn't intentionally do it this way by, I'm just going to solve my problems, at an arm's length transaction through a third, party. I didn't know that I was like, I just kind of fell out of me that way just because I didn't want to write my story. There was a lot of my story I was still really struggling with, as evidenced by my earlier videos, right? Still a lot of things I was trying to sort out, which the books really allowed me to do, right? To work on not only my problems, but the spiritual, the spiritual evolution of this character. Like, I was to advise this character, which is me, right? Like, what advice would I give them? What would I tell them to go and do? Would I tell them to go and meet their highest self and ask them to have a conversation with that person? Would I ask them to strip it all away? Strip it all away. Strip it all away. What's behind that? 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 To unpack my entire mind to see what's there, right? And what's interesting about this process of kind of like excavating your own mind, right? And really understanding your own personal motivations, your own limiting beliefs, those are huge. Like, I have to work out in order to have a good body. You don't. The universe is far more flexible than we have been taught, okay? But you gotta know the steps in order to do the deal, right? That's kind of what I was doing with my characters. I'm like, okay, if he's at this point now in his personal evolution, in his struggle with self, what is his next logical thing in order to get him either to joy? Remember, that was my first North Star, right? What's the thing I gotta do, or accept, or forgive in order to get to my North Star, which first was joy and then it was love, right? Now my North Star, this is like, okay. Wasn't really planning on going into this, but since we're here. Anyhow, glad everyone's having a good time. But seriously, what was I saying? See, this is what happens. But since we're here, my personal North Star now. Man, this work, I tell you, the onion just continues to, layer after layer, reveal itself. So, where I am now in my work is my North Star is no story, no illusion. When you strip away all the story, because all the story is what your ego is languaging in order to understand what either has happened or is going to happen, but none of it is tethered to what? The current, conscious, present moment. So it stands to reason that if you're thinking about the past or if you're talking about the future, you're not in the present. Ultimately, what you're trying to get to is being a being, not a thinking being. The whole thinking paradigm has to be abandoned. You have to stop thinking. You have to stop associating with story. Anything that you're languaging that is outside of the current conscious present moment. Right? We all know what the ego sounds like. Right? Well, then he said this, and then she said that, and then they did this other one. I can't believe. Right? All that. It's just illusion. illusion, chaos that you're putting into your personal energy field, right? Which is fine. If you want chaos in your energy field, like, have at it, right? But I found that to be very tiresome. And so ultimately, you have to keep giving things up, right? No more false gods. Remember, that was a really big one. But right now, no more story. Ooh, no more illusion. No story, no illusion. Where does that leave you? It literally only leaves you with the present moment. Because you can't go into the past, anything that's happened even 5 seconds ago, and you can't go into the future, right? And so you can only be here in the now. And that's where the perfection is, in the conscious present moment. The problem is we don't have enough experience not thinking, right? But that's ultimately why we meditate, is to create distance from thoughts. The more distance you can create from your own thoughts, the more peace you will have. Does that stand to reason, right? It's the thoughts that are making you unhappy. It's you using your imagination for harmful purposes instead of creative purposes, instead of for manifesting purposes, because that's where we always want to be, right? They always want to be in the manifesting mindset, which is seeing the future, which is talking about and languaging into this plane that which we wish to have. Don't talk about the past. Don't think about the past. There's a lot of pain there, right? Especially if you've lived your past in the duality of the ego. Get into presence, your own presence, where the rest of the world isn't happening. Grant yourself that. Grant yourself personal power. Bless yourself. Bless yourself as much as you can. The rest of the world won't, right? So it's kind of up to you, right? Treat your words like a sound bath, like we talked about, right? And call in all the good things, right? Be aware of your energy field, of your container, of how you're vibing, right? That's one thing I really do in my practice a lot is we really work on the person creating their own energy, right? And so what we often do, and let's just do it together because it's super fun, all right? So what we do together is we imagine your best feeling ever. Like, what does that look like? And so I have them like think about, is it your last day of school? Is it Christmas morning? Is it your birthday? Like what's your favorite feeling in the world, right? And I have them adopt that, right? I'm like, okay, all right, now just feel it really good, feel it really big, right? And then after they feel it for a while, I'm like, okay, now what color is it? And they'll give me a color, whatever, it can be for you. And I'm like, okay, now you know how to get there anytime that you're feeling off. So for me, my color is dark blue, the color of trust. That's the best feeling for me, the best feeling in the world. And so when I'm off or I'm having a bad day, I work my way back to dark blue, right? And I'll be driving in my truck, me, and I just do all my thinking in my truck, right? I'll be driving in my truck and I'll just envision myself with this incredible dark blue cape that just trails behind me for a mile as I'm driving. And I just, right? And I just get back to dark blue. Find that for yourself. Find home base. Find something that's a choice for you emotionally in your day, right? Carve out 10 minutes. Carve out 10 minutes to be dark blue, right? It's up to you. And you can change that. You can shift that. Anyhow, why we're in here? You got off on a tangent again. Imagine that. Why we're here, the books. All right. So, the first book, right, I learned so much about myself in this, and I put all the learning in here. Ultimately, my books are, like I said, a roadmap of how, at least to my understanding, of how we evolve in our consciousness, what has worked for me, right? And so I put all these ahas and lessons in here that the character goes through, right, on his evolution of self. Book 1, foreign to me, is Jack conquering self. right? It's him discovering that he has the same neurological movement disorder that I used to have, that I no longer have, that I have since cured myself of. Right? Book 2 is out. However, we are doing a relaunch of it next month. If you want to get it now, you can. However, next month when we do the relaunch, it'll read a little better. So if you wait another, it's just we went through a lot of developmental edits and things like this, and the new version will just read better. However, this is still good. I'm not going to say it's not, but anyhow, so book 1 and 2 in the trilogy are out. Book 3, I'm doing final edits on right now. So we're going to do one a month, a book launch a month, February, March, and April of 2024. And then we'll see where that goes, because like I said, we're working on a movie script for it as well, which is super exciting, because the woman from the LA Times is awesome, and I love her, and she loves me, and her nickname for me is Smart Man. I think that's so awesome. Her nickname is Smart Man. Okay, I'll say. Anyways, I gotta go. But yes, if you can go and download the book for free, again, you don't need a special device to download or purchase the Kindle e-file. You can see it, read it on any device, anywhere, and it's free. All right, so there it is, and I hope that you're well, and I will talk to you soon. All right, bye.